All right, yo, what's up? I want to talk about something today that's not like the sexy, hot thing about entrepreneurship. It's something that most people don't want to talk about, something that's not really addressed too much. It's about depression and anxiety and comparison envy in entrepreneurship. So I've gone through a ton of this myself. And I feel like this is the silent killer of entrepreneurs that no one likes to really discuss because it doesn't really jive very well with this idea of entrepreneurship being very carefree and being like luxurious in some ways. You know, we look on Instagram and social media and we see how much fun entrepreneurs are having and how much freedom it is to have all this money and you know, all these resources, but we don't ever talk about what's going on the inside. And I think it's something that we overlook a lot. And so I want to dive into that today. If you want to hear videos about, you know, how great entrepreneurship is and you know, 10 hacks, then I have videos for that. But this is not that. This is for people who are already experiencing both some of the highs and some of the lows and want to know kind of what's up with that. So a few of my initial thoughts. First of all, just humans in general, we have a lot of ups and downs emotionally. We're going to go through stuff. But in the context of entrepreneurship, it's almost like it's a focused, intense environment where every single action that you take and every single reaction that you have to what's going on with you can really affect your day, up and down to the point where you feel like there's no stability. Entrepreneurs typically are always, you know, kind of like feeling great when they're having success, and when they're not having you know, success even momentarily, feeling really shitty about themselves. And this is kind of the struggle of building something from the ground up. But the first place that I experienced kind of just this weird, like, low energy, depression, anxiety in my entrepreneurial journey was just getting started. And so there's going to be this period where in the beginning nothing really seems to be working, or the things that you think will eventually work haven't started clicking yet. And that's hard, man. I can remember still being stuck at, you know, multiple jobs and wondering, like, is this it? Like, I know there's a way out because I'm looking at the internet and I see people are getting out, but I don't know if that's going to be actually a possibility for me. Because, you know, you see on the internet, you see all these people who are doing cool things, cool, interesting things, but you never really met any of these people, so you don't really know if this is real shit. Like, is everyone being fooled? Is there any possibility of me getting a piece of this life that everyone says is so awesome? And if you don't know that that's a reality for you, it can be very depressing in the beginning because you feel like, you know, deep down, I don't know if it's like a self-worth issue or just this idea that maybe you're not enough. Maybe you won't be able to make it happen for yourself. And that's a hard realization. And sometimes that alone is something that, like, will sink you before you even have a chance to get to that next level, right? So in the beginning, there's that phase. You know, there's the phase of just uncertainty, which leads to just like this overwhelming feeling of just depression around even getting started, right? So we have that. But then once you get into the business and some things are working, you know, you started to see some success and some things are working, man, it's a struggle. And one of the biggest struggles that new entrepreneurs encounter is feeling like we need to be keeping up with someone else in order to be doing well ourselves, feeling like we're not making enough progress. I was just on the phone with someone today with a friend and a client of mine, and he was talking about how he looks at everyone else and thinks he's not making enough progress. He thinks he's not moving fast enough, and he feels that, like, that crushing urgency that he needs to be getting more done more quickly. And that causes a lot of sometimes depression and anxiety and sometimes shame because you're not going fast enough and you feel like, oh, well, I've been doing this now. I should be seeing more results. Some more things should be happening for me. You know, I should be making this work. You know, why haven't I made $1 million yet? And man, you know, I still struggle with this, and mostly I've learned to, like, just let it pass, but it still catches me sometimes, still catches up to me. You know, I have a lot of friends who are not just doing well with their business, but doing extremely well, you know, making millions and millions of dollars. And Rich 20 itself is doing well, and you have to understand, you know, as a business, as a company, not just Daniel doing it by himself, but as a company, we've only been around for like 18 months, you know, in terms of being incorporated. We've only been around for 18 months. And in that time period, we've made a lot of progress. You know, we've made a lot of money. We've made a lot of customers really happy. We've grown our resources and all that stuff. And it's great. But when I look at other friends who have been doing things for a little bit longer than me, or maybe even the same amount of time, and they're making more money, and it seems like they're having more connections, they're getting more phone calls from other important people, it seems like they're doing more than I am, it starts to eat away at me, because I feel like they're doing something that I'm not. They figured out something that I haven't, and why haven't I figured it out too? And so this would eat away at me a lot. Like, there would be a lot of times throughout the year where I'd be like, man, I don't know if I'm cut out to be an entrepreneur. Like, maybe I'm not supposed to be a CEO. Maybe I'm not supposed to do this, because I'm obviously not as good at it as some people are. And what I've had to realize is that the first thing you got to do is take a step back and realize that every single person has a unique path. And there's this idea that we should be able to model ourselves after success, right? There's this idea that we should be able to take what someone else has done and just follow their footsteps and be able to get the same result. And that's a helpful mechanism, because we want to be able to model ourselves. We want to be able to do things based on work that other people have proven to be successful. And that does work. But there comes a certain point where the comparison envy and just the idea of comparing your progress to someone else's progress is unhealthy. It's detrimental, because everyone has their individual unique characteristics that are going to help them to succeed. Your friends or your peers or your people in your space who seem to be doing really well have their own set of unique characteristics that are going to allow them to have that level of success, and you have those too. So for instance, if you ask someone, well, how did you get started with your business? Maybe they might tell you, you know, I have another client I was talking to who said, you know, he's trying to get his consulting business off the ground, and he was talking to another friend of his who's a successful consultant, and that person said, well, you know, the way I started my business was I had my brother was an attorney at a high-powered law firm, and he gave me some introductions, and those introductions led to my first couple clients. And he said to me, he's like, Daniel, you know, I don't have a brother who's a high-powered attorney, so how am I going to get started? And that's the thing that we think about. We think about what other people have done, and we take their exact scenarios, and we try to model those exact scenarios. And if we don't have those exact circumstances, we assume that it's not going to work for us. You know, you might not have a brother who's an attorney, but you might have other things that are in your favor. Maybe you have a friend or a family member or a coworker or an acquaintance that knows somebody that can help you, that can connect you. Or maybe you have a unique skill or ability or a talent that will help you. Or maybe you have a great idea that no one's had before. You have these resources too that other people don't have access to. And so when someone comes years later and asks you what your story is, you're going to tell them about your unique path. And they're going to think to themselves, man, I don't have that exact same scenario. I bet it's not going to work for me. That's the thing. You don't have to have someone else's exact same circumstance to succeed in the same way or better than they have at what you want to do. But what you have to deal with over time is learning how to accept the progress that you're making and celebrate your wins, no matter how big or small, and then realize that there are some things that no matter how hard you hustle, right, you just can't control. There's a certain amount of pushing that you can do to get work done. You certainly can stay up later and get up earlier. You certainly can, you know, study harder and learn more and become, you know, the best at your craft. But there are certain things that just take time. And the interesting thing about time is that it's our most precious resource, and there's the smallest amount of it in the world. But some things just require time to take hold. Sometimes you really do need to be going at a slower pace so that you can see the whole field a little bit better before you make a decision. And there might be some times where your peers race past you with what they're working on, and it seems like all is lost, and it seems like you're not making progress. But what you have to realize is that everything comes in its own time. So these feelings of depression, these feelings of I'm not enough, these feelings of sadness because other people are doing things that you'd like to do as well, you have to realize that as much as we want to be in this community of entrepreneurs together, we all are on our own individual journey, and we can't base ourselves off of other people's accomplishments or lack thereof, right? If other people haven't been able to accomplish something, it doesn't mean that we won't be able to do the same. So I find that most of my depression, and I use depression in a general sense, not clinical depression, although that does, I'm sure, occur in entrepreneurship circles, but I'm using depression more as talking about low energy, not feeling like doing it, anxiety, dipping into like self-degradation. All that stuff a lot of times comes from comparison envy and comparing yourself to other people's path. And I want to recommend something to you. I brought this in the car because I knew that I would be talking about it today, because I predict my videos, right? I recommend you go out and get this book. It's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. It's by Ben Horowitz, who is the co-founder of Andreessen Horowitz, which is a big investment firm, or a big venture capital firm in Silicon Valley. So he's seen a lot of businesses come and go, and he's also managed and been the CEO of a few businesses that have been sold for a lot of money. But he recounts in extreme detail like a lot of the deep depression and anxiety and indecisiveness and scary things that happened when he was trying to build his business. And we all go through these things. So what you need to really understand is that, you know, first of all, you're not alone. Everyone feels these things. Every entrepreneur that's ever, you know, stepped foot into the arena has been scared that they would go bankrupt, has been scared that they weren't going to make it, has been scared that a product or service that they're offering wouldn't sell, has had times when a product or service they were offering didn't sell, has flown close to the edge or close to the sun, as they would say in, you know, in Greek mythology, right? Everyone has had these scary moments. Everyone has had moments where they don't know if they're going to make it. Everyone's had moments where they feel like they can't go on anymore, and that can lead to depression and a lot of anxiety and a lot of constant, you know, worrying up at night. I mean, I got my first gray hair this year, right? Just literally pushed it out of my chin from stress, from trying to make sure that everything in the business was working well. And especially when you have payroll and you have people you have to pay and you have something you've built that you can't just exit, it becomes stressful. But what you have to realize is that some things just take time, and you have to be comfortable enough waiting for things to develop, and develop the skill of not freaking out over every single little mishap or possibility that can occur throughout your day. So a lot of things are going to go wrong, and just as many things that go wrong can possibly go right as well. So you have to be able to ride the waves. That's the key to this entrepreneurship thing. It's just like surfing. It's riding the waves. It's learning how to keep your balance when nature, which is the force you can't control, knocks you off course. And so that's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with forces of nature and then your own will to succeed. And as long as you can keep your balance and just stay on the board, you'll be okay. And if you do fall off, get back on and just keep balancing, because the waves are going to turn you. Another book I'd recommend too, which I don't have in the car with me, is called, well, there's a few of them I'd recommend. I recommend a lot of books, but The Untethered Soul. It's by Michael A. Singer, and it talks about how to stop some of that like anxious, annoying, depressed mental chatter in your head that goes on when you're dealing with a problem. And this is an essential skill as an entrepreneur, as a creative, as an artist. So it's learning that emotional control combined with patience over time and distance from comparing yourself to other people who really have nothing to do with what you're doing. Only you can determine your own pace. So hope that helps with thoughts regarding, you know, the whole struggle about entrepreneurship, depression, confusion, anxiety, comparison, envy. That was just a brief little summary of my thoughts. I know that there's a lot we can go into. Let me know if you enjoyed this, and if you want to know more, if you have specific questions, leave them below. If you're dealing with this right now and you have some specific questions you want to ask me, happy to film another video. But I hope this was worth your time and enjoyable. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because more great videos like this all the time. And I'll talk to you later. Peace.